The lion dance is meant to bring good fortune and good health. This particular style has been passed down in the Hung family for 13 generations.
The Chinese martial arts is one of our very important traditions in China and even in Hong Kong.
Each Sunday, these boys aged from 11 to 17 years old spend hours practicing the discipline.
In a fast-moving environment here in Hong Kong, people used to keep moving very quickly, and they used to may not be sticks to one thing in a very long time. So we hope we can keep this generation, keep this martial art, this style, keep it going, because we don't want to waste our great master over 400 years times. They've been trying hard to pass this martial art and kung fu and the workout to us.
Tradition blends with modernity in this cutting-edge city. Out on the streets of the Mong Kok district, we asked people how they would define what it means to be a local.
A city person, mainly, well, it's a really busy city, it's really crowded.
My feeling to Hong Kong is just local, yeah, without any connection to maybe China, maybe.
Ask locals here where they're from and they'll almost always tell you they're Hong Kongers. It's a relatively new term. It was added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2014, and it means a native or inhabitant of Hong Kong. In this city, it's also a reminder that there's a clear divide between locals and mainlanders. Eastern and Western values are a part of Hong Kong identity. One aspect of the culture here you can't physically see is the right to expression. Cantonese pop stars Denise Ho and Anthony Wong were actively involved in the umbrella movement. They say the ability to openly discuss politics and express yourself is under threat.
Like somehow within these few years, all the values and all that, the culture that we had, like somehow we realized that it's slipping away from us and it's been taken away from us. So that was when, you know, people in Hong Kong started to realize that we have to grab on, to hold on to these values.
As artists, they say there's a pressure to conform to government views.
In our days of a colony, we were not really censored. But now we are getting a lot of censorship from external or self-censorship.
Since the handover, scores of mainland tourists and workers have come to the city. While rituals like dim sum, drinking tea and eating with the family are an essential part of the culture shared on both sides of the border, Beijing's push for more Chinese history and Mandarin education in schools has been labelled by some activists as the mainlandization of Hong Kong, and it's turned preserving Hong Kong culture into a political issue.
I think the identity has not yet changed, but the government, especially the Chinese government, had long been attempt to intervene, and they try to convert people from a citizen with strong civic consciences to merely a patriotic nationals to the party state of China.
This cultural clash is also having an effect on how people from the mainland are viewed. 25-year-old Yuan Chun from Nanjing has been working here for 4 years.
Actually, most of my Hong Kong friends, they have some very negative view about the mainland China. From the papers, the media, they just have very huge negative point of view of China.
Adding yet another layer of complexity to what it means to be a Hong Konger. Natalie Pohonen, The Newsmakers, Hong Kong.
Well, joining me now from Hong Kong is leader of the Liberal Party, Felix Cheung Kwok Pan. He's a member of the Legislative Council, also a director at the Hong Kong Design Centre and an advisor to the city's fashion industry. And in London, Professor Steve Chang, he is the director of the China Institute at London School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, and he specializes in Hong Kong's relations with mainland China. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Steve Chang, if I can start with you, does Hong Kong have an identity crisis?
Hong Kong has a very strong, clear sense of identity. It isn't exactly necessarily an identity crisis in the sense of people not knowing what they actually are or what they want to be. Where there is an issue is that the Chinese government is trying to impose a different sense of identity onto Hong Kong, to the extent that they actually want the local Hong Kong sense of identity to be completely subordinate to the sense of identity as citizens of the People's Republic of China. That's where the problem lies.
Okay. Felix, is Beijing trying to impose an identity on Hong Kongers?
No, I don't think so, because everybody knows that all the Hong Kong people are Chinese, but we just classify ourselves as Hong Kong Chinese. So there's no identity problems whether we are from China. Of course, we are not from China, but most of our generation, our older generations, are from China. So there's no identity problem, but the only problem is the young people nowadays concentrate more on the one. If you're talking about one country, two system, we focus more on the two systems rather than one country. But now China wants us to recognize one country is the priority. Without one country, there's no two systems. Well, that's the only contradictions that we have right now.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, Felix, that China can tolerate, with one country, two systems, Beijing can tolerate an independent, confident Hong Kong identity?
I don't think so. I mean, China give us a lot of rooms for us to for the Hong Kong government to rule ourselves. But in the last few years, a small percentage of the Hong Kong people are looking for what they call independence, but which is most of the Hong Kong people do not agree with that. And we totally think that we are all Chinese, we belong to China. Mm-hmm. So, of course, China is not happy with those people who's talking about independence. So right. They have certain criteria, want the Hong Kong government to do a lot more educations or national educations to tell the people how important China is. Okay,
Felix, there's a poll every year, right, by University of Hong Kong. June 2016, a poll found 31% of people in Hong Kong said they 31% of people said they felt proud to be Chinese nationals. That tells you 69% of people didn't feel proud to be Chinese nationals. Tell me what's behind that, Felix.
No. The analysis can be like this. There is another post by another university, another universities. So whether Hong Kong people still support the one country, two systems. 70% of the Hong Kong people still support one country, two systems. And 17% of the people, young people especially, they want independent. And also, another 13% of the people want one country, one systems. Right. So, I mean, if you just saying that 31% of the people enjoy to be Chinese, but you cannot say that the other 67% will not say no. But the reason, there is a recent research, a recent poll saying that those 70% of the young people who want Hong Kong independent has been dropped. Okay. And now it's about 11%. Okay. So I mean, the poll's been changing all the time.
Okay, so Steve, I gave Felix a few stats. He has an interpretation of them. He still believes that one country, two systems with an overall Chinese identity is the way to go. Tell me why you disagree, Steve.
What Felix had provided is a fantastically clear and wonderful representation of the views of the Chinese government, which is exactly why the problem exists. People feel what they feel. By simply saying that a long-standing opinion poll that has been running ever since 1997, and in fact even before the handover, is no longer valid because the facts do not suit their particular argument, does not change the facts on the ground. That's the kinds of arguments that President Trump would be very proud to make. The movement in Hong Kong for independence is indeed very, very small. But what is even more important was that there wasn't even anything like any advocacy for independence in Hong Kong if you only go back, say, 5 years. The younger generations of people in Hong Kong are coming out and ask for independence because they were pushing back against what they saw as deliberate government policy to introduce brainwashing in Hong Kong.
Okay, what do you mean by brainwashing, Steve?
Patriotic education.
Steve, give me an example,
campaign.
right? When you say brainwashing, what do you mean? Do you mean the imposition of Mandarin? Because some might say, hey, Mandarin's a language, and this is pragmatic. Why not learn the language, Putonghua as they call it? Why not learn it and enrich yourself? Nobody's suppressing Cantonese. Is that what you mean by brainwashing?
No. Language is not the issue here. Schools in Hong Kong now generally teach Mandarin. Cantonese is the lingua franca, it's the local language that people normally speak anyway. But they're happy to be learning Mandarin. Nobody really take particular issues with that. Where they did take issues from very young kids, we're talking about children themselves organizing, was when the government tried to impose a new school curriculum that teaches contemporary Chinese histories in a way that even teenagers in Hong Kong could see that that's just not true.
Okay.
And they wanted a proper education where they would be allowed to think for themselves.
Let's ask Felix then. Felix, are Hong Kongers being brainwashed by Beijing?
Of course, no. I mean, I totally disagree with that statement. I mean, what happening was about 5 years ago when the new government, at that time, the new government wanted to introduce the national history on the curriculum on the secondary school. But I mean, there was some argument on the content of it. I mean, but the content can be discussable. Hong Kong is a very liberal city, so national history was not put in the syllabus of the secondary school. So the Hong Kong government just want to put it back. Now is not compulsory, and everything can be revised and negotiated. So I mean, there's nothing happened just like what the other gentleman said, the brainwashing. Never happened in Hong Kong.
Steve Chang, as we talk about culture wars, to what extent have Hong Kongers exacerbated the problem by, for example, referring to Chinese from the mainland who come on holiday as locusts on social media, by talking about them as being dirty for eating on the subway, and so on? Has that contributed to the problem, Steve?
That is a manifestation of the problem more than the original source of the problem. It certainly doesn't help, because in terms of relationship between the people of Hong Kong and the people of the mainland China, they really need to have mutual respect for each other. There are completely different ways of life and different ways of doing things. Hong Kong, in many ways, have embraced core values that they have inherited from the time when Hong Kong was a British territory. The rights of individuals, freedom, rule of law, and respect for each other, and that includes certain behavior. And when you have sometimes some Chinese visitors, not by any means all Chinese visitors, but a small number of Chinese visitors who go to Hong Kong and they simply behave the way they normally behave in China, they sometimes cause very serious problems with the local people, because the local people will see that as being extremely rude and not well-educated behavior. Now, that sort of things are problems, but that is not the kind of problems that really is driving the rise of a very strong sense of identity, which underpins a small number of young people who ask for independence. In a place where everybody knows independence is not an option. The young people asking for independence knows that that's not going to happen. But they are very, very angry with the way how the Chinese government and people who are speaking on behalf of the Chinese government simply ignore what they think and how they feel and impose something on them and simply tell them that if you don't think the way that we think, you should think.
Okay.
There's some problems with you.
Okay, so Felix, isn't that reasonable? They don't want independence. All they want is to be respected as Hong Kongers with a separate identity. Still one country, two systems. They just want Beijing to listen a bit more. Isn't that reasonable?
You know, all the young people always have what they required, or they are very ideal on certain things. This is reasonable, but it's the way that they present, I think, has the problems. They can, of course, express their view, but I mean, whether this is the right way to express the view, a lot of the Hong Kong people think that is not the correct way. Everybody in Hong Kong understand that there's no way that Hong Kong can be independent, so they can request the government to do a lot more. I mean, the government can be have rooms to improve. They can, through the Hong Kong government, to talk to the central government to express the view, but to express the way saying independent, I don't think is the correct way.
Unfortunately, I've got to wrap. Gentlemen, I thank you very much. Thanks so much for joining us.